Hundreds of thousands have died because of your inability to accept that your sons are monsters, that they create monsters. Here's your look at the Star Ace. This is the 12-inch soft vinyl figure of the Underworld Evolution Lycan. In the Underworld movie series, a war rages in the darkness where humans cannot go. The vampires battle the werewolves or Lycans in a centuries-old war. The Lycans can transform from human to a fierce, snarling beast, but still retain their human reasoning. This 12.59-inch tall vinyl figure represents a Lycan ready to go into battle. His mouth wide open, showing his sharp teeth and claws out, ready to rip apart his vampire foe. This figure features synthetic hair attached to the head sculpt to better represent the look of the Lycan. The deluxe version features a display base with the remnants of a building and spent shells from the ultraviolet ammunition used to kill vampires. Now, before we get a closer look, and believe you me, we're going to get a closer look at the details on this incredible piece, the first thing that I'm going to do is provide you guys the necessary 411 of just how tall the Underworld Evolution soft vinyl statue of the Lycan actually is. Looking at the trusty tape measure of mine, you're looking at the Lycan standing 12.2 inches in height. And that in centimeters works out to be 31.2 centimeters tall. Some size comparisons, I'm sure, of something you want to see compared next to the Lycan. Here it is next to the Selene 6-scale figure. To correct that, it is actually the Selene 2.0 version that had the blue light-up eyes. We just also had a review of that one not too long ago. The Lycan is a little short in size. Ideally, because they are using two different release formats, one being a statue, one of course being a figure, I don't think they're supposed to be paired where they're scaled to one another. In the argument, I suppose, of that, you could probably also say, too, that the Lycan is leaning forward. See, he's bent at his legs and bent at his knees. You got to imagine if he was at full height, that would make it at more successful of a scale with the Lycan compared to Selene. Still, though, when it comes to displaying these, most definitely I'll be displaying the Lycan next to the Selene, or if I can, I'm probably going to make use of the display stand to display both figures together. Of course, the display stand I am referring to is the one that comes included with the deluxe version. If you get the standard release, you're basically looking at the thing that we just had a look at. Just the Lycan minus the foot strut and minus, of course, this really awesome looking display stand. The display stand, as you can see, has some casings left behind. Bullets left, of course, from battling the vampires. And there's a whole bunch of blood. Dry, yes, but there's a slight indication of blood across the stonework here. I like also the scroll that they've added to the detailing around the outer parameter of the display base. And as you can see on the front, you've got Underworld. Not specifically Underworld Evolution, which I like that they didn't have the need to add Evolution to that. Simply just the name of the movie Underworld is perfectly fine for me. It's been actually raised as well and has a glowing blue look to it. I like the look of that. We flip it upside down and we're treated to Underworld Limited Edition Lycan statue with 4 rubberized feet around each of the 4 sections. Well, not quite corners, but around 4 areas of the circular display stand here. If you saw my review of the Kong Skull Island Kong 2.0, the display stand reminds me very similar of the one that comes included with Kong. No, I don't mean the detailing, because obviously that would be a different style of backdrop, but the plastic, or at least the weight of it at least, feels like it's about the same as what we got with Kong Skull Island. Like, these being vinyl is smart and clever. Obviously it keeps the cost down, which is the more important thing. They're not heavy pieces, and being that they're also made of vinyl, it means that there's less likely things that are going to be breaking on the pieces, especially when we're looking at things like the display stand. Now, if you do get the standard release Lycan, you're just basically getting this. If you get the deluxe version, you're getting the display stand as well. The Lycan, thank goodness, has the means to stand just on his own. He is a little heavier on top, and the posing of his legs certainly does make him a contender for something that could potentially wobble. If you do worry that your Lycan is going to topple over, Starry's also includes this, a little back heel strut that actually just clips to the back of the leg. Let me show you how it works. You're just basically going to take it, and it couldn't be any bit easier. You're just going to wedge it against the back of the foot. It serves only the purpose of just giving you an extra little bit of support. If you clamp it down, it's not going to go anywhere. And like I said, it does give you just a little bit of extra stability when it comes to displaying the statue. The thing about when you are putting it on the base, for example, as you probably can see with the terrain here, it's not completely flat. It's sort of a little bit of waves, and little areas are a little higher than areas over here, for example. So as I said, it's not a completely flat terrain. Why I say that, and why I mentioned the including of this, is if you are looking to display it on the stand, which is going to be the preferred look for me, that back heel strut sort of again helps to stabilize the statue in place. Without that, and with the terrain being slightly off-kiltered, I feel like the Lycan wouldn't stay well enough in place, and could likely fall if you're not careful. So we're going to start this review looking at the stellar head sculpt that Starry's put on their Lycan here. The Lycan has changed over the various Underworld films. Often at times the coloring is one thing that does change on these beasts. Sometimes they come across more like a dark gray. Other times they look brown, and other times as well you see the lighter coloring of their skin, so much so that you see all these additional spots. This is the route that Starry's went. While the colorings could have, yes, been a little bit darker, where they really then be able to shine, is the fact that you do see all these little spots to it. Kind of reminds me of the hide of a hyena. One thing that's interesting about the head sculpt, though, is that you can see they've rooted in fur. No, it's not real Lycan fur, but it's the closest thing that you could get, I suppose, to real animal fur. And it's been, like I said, attached along the seam line here, down the side of the cheek, around the bottom of the chin, and around up the side again of the cheek. It is not quite, of course, the same material used for the back mane, if you will, that runs all the way down the spine, all the way, of course, around the bottom section here and on the elbows. Where I do feel like, for example, this looks good because you do get the additional highlights and lowlights. They've added this lighter gray where, again, all these hairs do stand out. I'm not really sure how I feel if they had done that here. One good thing is that as a collector, you can kind of go in there and play with the hair. You can move it to the way that you want it. You can have a full out straight beard where it's, again, running all the way around. I kind of like to separate it slightly so it's a little bit more down at the bottom, and then just divide it off here so it's a little bit sticking out from the sides. So you do have a little bit more that you can play with by, of course, using this as real fur. Getting a close look at the teeth, you, of course, have very sharp teeth jutting out from the gums, of course, of the Lycan there. And get a close-up look at the detailing on his eyes. Look at the eyes on that. Very crystal blue pair of peepers staring right back at you. You can also see the nice detailing sculpt that they added to the furrowed brow. And you can see how the nose is perched back, pulled back, as it's not quite roaring, obviously. Lycans don't really roar. But it certainly is ready to be fighting the vampires. As you can see, its teeth are ready to clamp down on flesh. As we move further away, again, we get some close details at all the veins and stuff that they've added to the... Oh, that is awesome looking paint job there. All the veins. And they're not even just painted on veins either. They're sculpted in there as well. So they stick out a bit from the hide of the Lycan. Moving further down, of course... this one arm, while it's only shared on this side, it's obviously, I shouldn't say it's not shared on this side, it's only on this one side, it has the shackle in place. Obviously, it looks like it's been broken and freed away from its prison, as it's got the dangling chain, which is a real working chain. I like the look of that. You have a screw hole, which I feel maybe from a size standpoint could be maybe a little bit too big for the shackle. Like it looks like a real carpenter's screw that they've just screwed in place. But it's still the fact that they would actually have included a screw that it looks like, of course, it's been bolted in place. You get additional little rusting that's been added to the actual bracelet collar. And then, of course, you've got the chain, the real working chain coming down from it. It's a nice poised, sculpted looking lichen. It's got a lot of stuff to really look at when you really look at from like the top of it and you work your way down. All those additional spots. Again, it kind of reminds me of a hyena a bit in the way. You got more additional of those veins running out, jetting out, sticking out from the flesh with some additional fur running down below there. The thing about this particular piece, again, is its staction. It has no intended purpose of ever being something that would have posability to it. We're going to go ahead and clamp this back into place. Make sure we clamp it onto the right side here. The thing about it, though, is I don't know if, honestly, you could have produced a 6-scale version of the lichen. It would be very difficult based on the anatomy of the way the lichen is. Its hind legs and the way that it bends its legs would be a very difficult figure to pull off. It would be certainly a very intricate, sculpted piece to have all of those moving components. And it certainly would have increased as well the price point that would be asked to getting this one in your collection. I think personally speaking, when it comes to displaying it, I'm fine for the fact that it's staction. I mean, obviously, I'd have less to worry about. I wouldn't have to worry about loose limbs, for example, because those legs would be asking a lot to keep the lichen held up, standing up the way that it currently is. Does it scale well to Selene? Well, that's, of course, a question to be asking as well. I guess if, again, you think about the way that the lichen is obviously bigger than Selene. Selene is a smaller character. But again, when you look at the fact that the knees are bent the way that they are, and the fact that the torso is slightly leaning forward also as well, if it was standing straight up, the lichen probably would be another head or two taller than Selene. So in that sense, even though it could have probably been broader, I don't think the intended plan from Starries was ever really to make these so that they would be scaled together, scaled in such a way that you could put the two on display, even though eventually that's going to be the way I'm going to display them anyways. The lichen is so cool that I'm definitely going to want to put it on display along with the 6-scale Selene that we had gotten before. Now, I've always had a thing for werewolves, and I've always had a thing for vampires. I've always had a thing for films where they could take classic movie monsters like those two and pit them against one another till the bitter end. Obviously, you could imagine the sell for me for Underworld when it first came out, as it took classic silver screen monsters like the werewolf, like the vampire, put them together in today's world with today's city and today's technology, and have them continue their age-old battle till again one species was victorious over the other. The neat thing about the lichens, though, was the fact that they weren't your granddad's werewolves, in the sense that they weren't covered in fur. These lichens instead rather were bare-skinned creatures with only a little bit of fur down on their mane and their arms and their legs, and of course underneath their chin. The rest allowed artists behind the scenes to craft these incredible looking creatures that were broader, larger in size, and stronger than maybe their silver screen counterparts. The lichen here has been very faithfully recreated from the folks over at Starries, giving us exactly what the lichen would look like in the film with all its little tiny detailed nuances. Love the spots that they put all over the body. The hair is fantastic. And though some would maybe say, could they have used the same medium, the plastic vinyl on the chin beard? Yes, they could have. I mean, one thing that would have benefited the figure is by using the plastic in its chin, you would have also been able to get those highlights and lowlights that work so well on the rest of the hair. Though, to be fair, there is something fun to be able to go in there and play with the hair on the chin of the lichen, for fear that, of course, it's not a real lichen and you don't have to worry that the arm is going to get ripped off in the process. The lichen is sized at about 12 inches. As you can see, of course, in the course of this review, it scales about the size of Selene. It's a little bit taller than Selene, but not by much. Lichens in the film, of course, tower over the vampires, and they're a little bit broader in size. This one, I don't think its intended plan was to be displayed with Selene. I mean, there is still the option. It's not like the lichen is smaller than Selene, so it still works on a display. Also, if you wanted to make use of the deluxe display stand that only the deluxe version of the lichen does come included with, that would of course increase its height, making it a little bit taller than Selene. So that's one option available as well. I like that the lichen is available with a display stand where the lichen can at least be removed. It doesn't have to be imprisoned and kept in the place of the base. What I mean by that, it doesn't have a peg underneath its foot. So if you take the Lycan off, you can't stand it on its own. And because it does have that support strut on the back of its heel, means that you can display the Lycan on its own if you wanted to go the route of the standard release, which of course the display stand isn't included. I think Star Ace has really knocked this one out of the park, giving us all those intricate little details that we see in the film, though in the film, a lot of the times the Lycans are really in dark areas, so you don't get a chance to fully experience the Lycan as you can here in the 12-inch soft vinyl release from Star Ace. Something certainly I want to pose perhaps to the team at Star Ace. If you've got such a neat looking sculpt like this for the Lycan, why not, like its film counterparts, release this guy in various different color schemes, color variants for example. After all, the spotted hyena skin that he has here in this look could easily be something that could be changed out to say a darker gray, a darker brown. After all, the Lycans don't all share the exact same looks in the films. Why not change it up a bit and release different versions of this Lycan with, like I said, a different color palette? I would love to see what they could do with this same sculpt, maybe in a dark gray plastic, a dark vinyl, a dark gray vinyl. I mean, certainly the sky's the limits when it comes to a release like this, like with the Kong 2.0 that we had looked at in a previous review. I mean, why not release this guy in a grayscale as well, all black and white, sort of harking back to its earlier appearances as a werewolf in those old silver screen outings. What a neat looking figure though. It doesn't have posability, no, to it, but the way at least it's poised, it does look like it's going to rip into a vampire. And I think for all the more reasoning, you might want to keep your Celine 6 scale figure a little further away from the display of the Lycan here. What do you guys think of this Lycan? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'd also like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Star Ace for making this review possible. This was again the deluxe version of the Lycan, which again I want to stress the fact would come included with the display stand. If the display stand isn't really even something that you would display with the figure anyways, just go with the standard release. The standard release will give you the exact same Lycan, it just won't come included with the display stand, that's all. Either way, today we were having a look at the brand new Star Ace. This was a 12-inch soft vinyl figure of the Underworld Evolution Lycan. What a fantastic looking piece. If you guys are new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and keep your peepers peeled because there's going to be a whole lot of videos coming your way. And if you also would like to go back and have a look at some of my other previous Star Ace reviews, well, there's a playlist just for Star Ace. Feel free to get a gander and check those older videos out if you'd like. Speaking also of Star Ace, we're going to be having a look at some upcoming Star Ace reviews. So if, again, you like what's coming out from Star Ace, keep your eyes peeled to this channel because there's going to be a whole lot of stuff coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.